There are few things in this world that are as enchanting and as creepy as a good ghost story. For centuries, people have been telling tales of hauntings, strange noises, and bizarre sightings. Well, many of these stories can be chalked up to overactive fantasies, but there are some that have a ring of truth to them. So, are ghosts real? Well, it's impossible to say for sure, but there are certainly some creepy and unexplained occurrences out there. In this video, we'll take a look at 15 chilling stories that will make you believe in the supernatural. Let's start off with number 15, the boy with no eyes. It started when he was 10 years old. One night, he woke to the sound of his bedroom door creaking open and the weight of someone sitting on his bed. He felt a soft graze against his leg and the bed sink. Assuming it was his mother, he opened his eyes and froze. Sitting at the foot of his bed was a boy his age, but with empty black sockets where his eyes should have been. The boy extended a small box as if offering it. Hesitant, he reached for it, but the boy pulled away. The moment he blinked, the figure vanished, but the imprint of his weight remained on the bed. Years later, his girlfriend took a nap in the same room. When he woke her, she looked terrified, pointing at the ceiling. "I saw a boy with no eyes," she whispered. Years after that, their 2-year-old daughter spoke of a lost boy looking for his mother, appearing at the same time every night. Number 14, the Ashley Street Ghost. In 1972, a University of Michigan student attended a party on Ashley Street, unaware the house held a dark past. A bone-chilling cold gripped her, unlike anything she had felt before. Trying to shake it off, she went upstairs, hoping the rising heat would warm her. Instead, things got worse. A shadow loomed from the wall, shifting toward her. Downstairs, posters flew off the walls, landing in a pile on the floor. As if in a trance, she spoke words that weren't hers. "The drugs and addiction were my fault, but I was not that way deep inside." The room fell silent. The students weren't surprised. Before them, the house belonged to a man struggling with addiction, a man who had died of a heroin overdose in that very home. Had his restless spirit been lurking in the shadows, waiting for someone to hear his final confession? Number 13, the ghost of Frederick Jordan. Lighthouse keepers often live isolated lives, but for Frederick Jordan, his watch never ended. In 1916, Jordan was the head keeper of Penfield Reef Lighthouse in Connecticut, a beacon warning sailors of the treacherous waters ahead. Days before Christmas, he set out in a small boat to visit his family. A sudden gale hit, flipping the boat. Jordan drowned, his body lost to the sea. Since then, strange malfunctions plague the lighthouse. Equipment fails, lights flicker, and keepers often find the logbook open, always to the date of Jordan's death. But perhaps the eeriest encounters happen on the water itself. Fishermen and sailors have reported seeing a shadowy figure near the reef, guiding lost boats to safety. Some believe it's Jordan himself, forever fulfilling his duty, ensuring that no one else meets his fate in the stormy waters of Penfield Reef. Number 12, the hauntings at the Lizzie Borden house. On August 4, 1892, Andrew and Abby were brutally murdered in their Fall River, Massachusetts home. Bludgeoned with an axe, the crime shocked the nation. The main suspect? Their daughter, Lizzie Borden. Though she was acquitted, she remained forever linked to the gruesome killings. Today, the Borden house is a bed and breakfast, and guests report unsettling encounters. Some hear laughter and whispers in empty rooms. Others wake to find objects moved and furniture displaced without explanation. One tour guide recalled seeing toys scattered across a room, despite no one entering it. On the eve of the murder's anniversary, something chilling occurred. 3 tour guides felt sharp pains in their left eyes, the exact spot where Andrew Borden was struck with the axe. But the most unsettling moment came when a guest's phone rang during a tour. She glanced down, startled. "It's my mom," she said. The room fell silent. But she died 2 years ago. Number 11. The imaginary friend. Jacqueline grew up believing she had an imaginary friend, until she realized he wasn't imaginary at all. As a child, she loved visiting her grandparents, Granny Junie and Pa Hank, in their quiet home with a backyard shaded by a large tree. It was under that tree where she spent hours with Pa Hank, listening to his stories of the past, including tales from the Prohibition era. She never questioned it. His presence felt warm, familiar. But there was one problem. Pa Hank had died in 1981. Jacqueline was born in 1982. The stories, the conversations, even the sound of his footsteps at night, it all suddenly made sense. Her childhood memories weren't just memories, they were experiences with a ghost. Her family never questioned it. Granny Junie even refused to stay in the house on the anniversary of his death. To Jacqueline, it never felt terrifying. It never felt like a ghost. It just felt like Pa Hank. Number 10. The unexpected passenger. Julie, an 18-year-old from Portland, Oregon, was driving alone one evening when traffic slowed to a crawl. As she passed the wreckage of a fatal car accident, she felt a wave of unease. Moments later, she glanced at the passenger seat and nearly screamed. A woman sat beside her, dressed in work clothes, her expression filled with panic and confusion. "How did I get here? Who are you?" she demanded. Julie, heart pounding, tried to stay calm. Then realization dawned. The woman had an unearthly quality, her presence unnatural. Julie gently told her the truth. She had been in an accident. The woman looked horrified, then turned toward the sunlight breaking through the trees. And then, she vanished. Days later, the news showed a photo of a trucker who had died in the accident. Julie's stomach dropped. It was the woman from her car. Number 9. The Ghosts of Shawshank Penitentiary. The Ohio State Reformatory is famous for being the filming location of the Shawshank Redemption. But long before Hollywood, it was known for something far darker. Housing some of the most violent criminals, the prison was filled with pain, death, and suffering, and some of its former residents refused to leave. Paranormal investigator Teresa Argy has explored the prison extensively. She recalls hearing a woman crying when no one else was there, followed by the unmistakable scent of rose perfume, believed to be the spirit of the warden's wife, who accidentally shot herself in the home. Even more unsettling is the mysterious woman in the chapel who sits silently in the pews until someone approaches, at which point she vanishes. The worst presence, however, is something far more malevolent. It once followed Argy's partner home, appearing as a shadow figure in the window. After seeking spiritual help, it finally disappeared. Number 8. The Phantom Ambulance Lights. In the mid-1990s, Robert worked as a paramedic in a small Texas town. One night, he and his partner were dispatched to a rural home for a woman experiencing chest pain. It was dark, making house numbers difficult to see, so they mistakenly pulled into the wrong driveway. Realizing their mistake, they backed out and turned off the emergency lights before heading to the correct address. When they arrived, they recognized the location. A month prior, they had responded to the same home for a man in cardiac arrest. He had died. This time, it was his wife. They began treating her, and Robert sent his partner outside to retrieve the stretcher. Moments later, his partner returned, looking disturbed. Every single emergency light on the ambulance was flashing, even though they had been turned off. Neither of them had touched the controls. They could only assume her husband was still there, watching over her. Number 7. The Ghost of the Hanged Man. Justice wasn't swift in 1877, but the town of Redwood, California, ensured it was brutal. Robert Schmale, found guilty of a horrific murder spree, was sentenced to hang on October 13th. But death alone wasn't enough. The townspeople left his body hanging for days, a spectacle of their rage. Not a single person showed remorse. That lack of closure, some say, is why he never truly left. Over the years, his figure has been spotted in town, appearing for only a moment before vanishing into the darkness. Those who have seen him describe the feeling as deeply unsettling, as though they are being watched from the shadows. No one knows what Schmael's vengeful spirit wants. Maybe he seeks justice for the way he was treated after death. Or maybe he's simply waiting for the right person to notice him long enough that he doesn't have to disappear again. Number 6. The Ghost Nanny. Kip and his wife were excited about their new home until the strange occurrences began. Shortly after moving in, his wife's sister and newborn baby visited, staying in the downstairs bedroom. That first night, Kip's wife overheard her sister talking to someone. The next morning, she asked who it was. Her sister paled. "I woke up, and an old woman was standing over my baby. I had to tell her to leave." More eerie incidents followed. Lamps moving on their own, a smoke alarm blaring for no reason. One day, while gardening, Kip's wife ran inside to find thick white fog filling the downstairs bedroom. Seconds later, it vanished. A neighbor later revealed that the previous owner, a 90-year-old woman, had died in a house fire. Unnerved, they fixed the house and moved out as quickly as possible, leaving the ghostly nanny behind. Number 5. A strange painting. The memory was distant yet sharp enough to send shivers down his spine. As a child, no older than 5, he lay awake, tangled in blankets, watching the shadowed corner of his bedroom. Across the room, near the wooden toy chest, a woman sat. She wasn't a stranger, yet he didn't recognize her. Dressed in flowing white, she held a book, reading quietly, her presence unnervingly calm. Every time he peeked over his blankets, she was still there. Morning brought relief, and he recounted the experience to his mother. She dismissed it, though her belief in ghosts wavered between skepticism and curiosity. Weeks later, while cleaning the attic, she found a painting of a woman in white, her image draped in clouds of fabric. She hung it in the bathroom, thinking little of it. To the boy, it was not just a painting. Every glance at it was a reminder of that night, and the figure that might still be watching. All right, now, let's talk about Number 4. An odd coincidence. A group of friends gathered in a small Manhattan apartment, swapping stories late into the night. The conversation drifted to family history, and one guest mentioned his great-grandfather, Izzy, who had once lived in a tenement on the Lower East Side. Curious, he texted his grandmother for details. The reply sent a chill through the room. Izzy's draft card listed the exact address of the apartment they were in. The eerie coincidence hung in the air. Then, a sudden knock rattled the door. Expecting an annoyed neighbor, they answered, but no one was there. Moments later, the knocking resumed. Still, the hallway was empty. The laughter that followed was nervous, forced. The knocking never returned, but the room's energy shifted. It felt heavier, like someone was listening, watching. Izzy's story wasn't just history anymore. It had somehow stepped into the present. Number 3. A girl and her dog. A photographer traveling through Vermont woke abruptly in his hotel room. The soft patter of tiny paws echoed across the floor. Before he could react, a small girl appeared, her voice light yet clear. "Have you seen my dog?" she asked. She couldn't have been more than 7. He pointed to the bathroom where he had seen the dog run. She shook her head and stepped inside. But when he followed, the bathroom was empty. No dog, no girl. Weeks later, his assistant and her sister stayed in the same room. Both awoke from a startlingly similar dream. Their father sitting on the bed, then walking into the bathroom. That morning, they received a call. Their father had passed away during the night. The hotel's charm now felt unsettling, its halls too quiet, as though holding stories too heavy to tell. Some memories refused to fade. Some never leave. Number 2. Click Click. A young video editor sat hunched over his laptop working late into the night. The house was silent, except for the soft snoring of his dog, Kovu, curled up beside him. Then it came. Click, click. The lamp flickered off, then back on. He froze. Exhaustion, a power glitch, then click, click. The dog's ears perked, his eyes locked on something above the lamp. The editor held his breath. Again, click, click. Then suddenly, the lamp went berserk. Office on, a frenzy, as if an unseen hand was toying with it. His blood ran cold. Kovu growled, fur bristling. The air turned ice cold. Heart pounding, he scooped up his dog and bolted to his sister's room. He refused to return to his workspace until morning. The next day, he moved his desk out of the room entirely. The lamp stayed behind. So did whatever had been playing with it. Number 1. The White Woman. A couple drove down a winding forest road in Ridgefield, Connecticut, snow blanketing the ground. The night was still, the road empty, until they saw her. A woman in white, standing in the storm. Startled, they swerved, barely missing her. Shaken, they pulled over, turning back to offer her help. But when they reached the spot, she was gone. No footprints in the snow. Nothing. The next day, they told the story to family, who retrieved an old history book. Inside was the legend of Sarah Bishop, a recluse who lived in a cave nearby and attended church in a white gown. She had died alone in a snowstorm centuries ago. The couple had brushed against something beyond explanation. They hadn't just seen a strange woman in the snow. They had seen a ghost, a whisper of history still lingering in the cold night air. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon in the next one.